there's something that I was thinking about earlier today, and I'm like, I'll just make a video on it, right? And it's one of those make it make sense things, and it has to do with grandparents. Now, obviously, grandparents are people that we generally all know and love, and I would venture to say a vast majority of people have decent relationships with their grandparents. Now, there are a handful, actually there's a large portion that don't really get along or just don't even know their grandparents like that, right? And one thing that I thought was interesting is just the idea of a toxic grandparent. Now, I have met an incredibly toxic grandparent in my past, and I noticed some traits that were just very weird to have, you know? And one of the biggest things I struggled understanding is when you get older, right? You understand that your time is running out. Your time is running out. To put it bluntly, your time is running out. You don't have very much time left on the planet, right? So, especially if you're a religious person, why would you want the last few years of life to be filled with some, extreme toxicity, and it made no sense to me. Now, like, people will venture to ask, well, James, what is a toxic grandparent? Well, a toxic grandparent is someone who seeks to have ultimate control over their family, over their children, their grandchildren, and maybe those children's children, right? And if they don't get their way, then they start ostracizing or isolating people from the family. They might have like a gathering, right, and not really invite certain family members, or they might only keep a close contact with most of the family and leave out a few, to kind of like make them feel horrible. And I thought that was interesting just because I'm like, dang, like, it's weird. There's like other traits too, like, hey, whenever they need help, they'll bang on your door, make you feel horrible for not helping them, and until you help them out, But then when you ask for help, you need help, and you know that they are capable of helping you, right? Then they turn around and go like, why would you even consider asking me something like that? That's weird, blasphemy, gross. It's never made sense to me. And I just thought it was something that was kind of disturbing in a way, because I thought to myself, what goes through a person like that's head? Like, what goes through their head when they do things like that? Like, do they realize that, they are pretty much painting a really good picture of what the afterlife is going to look like for them? If they're religious. If they're not religious, go crazy. You know what I'm saying? Go crazy. But I'm really talking about people who are religious that, go to church all the time and stuff like that, and then turn around and do some toxic stuff. There was, I think, one of the most toxic things I've ever seen. I saw this one grandparent, right? I think it was like her grandson told her that, wait, was it her grandson? I think it was her grandson told her that that he was having a child, right? But dude was like not married at all. He said it happened on accident, and then she like spazzed on him. She's like, you horrible person, you make me sick, you disgust me, And I was just like, what? Wait, what? Because I've never, it blew my mind, because I've never seen anything like that before. And I'm like, I mean, call me crazy, but didn't she want to have grandbabies? Like, isn't that the whole like thing that most grandparents want? Like, dang, maybe, I don't know, maybe hindsight, maybe she was just upset that they weren't married or something like that. But like, it just always crossed my mind, because then I'm like, dude, now you made, because you could clearly tell the look of distraught and like distaste on everyone's face in the room, right? Like, they just look defeated, they look like disgusted almost, like with themselves. After the grandmother says some foul shit like that, I'm like, bro, what? And I don't know, like, it's just, that same grandparent moved very funny, because a lot of people knew she was super wealthy, right? And I guess I guess several friends of mine always told me like, hey, the wealthy stay wealthy for a reason, right? Like, you know, whether they are stingy or whatever. And she was definitely stingy, right? Like she would be real quick to charge people if they asked her for help. She would charge people. She'd be like, hey, that's gonna be at least $20 an hour or $100 an hour for da 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 da. And then whenever she needed something, it was free 99. Like, hey, can you do this for me? Can you come move this? Can you come da 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 da? And I don't know. I'm like, bruh, like, what is going on? I mean, there's so much other deep stuff, right? Like, you know, you can go on and on and on for days. But the whole concept, the whole question I had is: has anybody else seen a toxic grandparent interaction with other people, friends, family? Like, I mean, do you have one or whatever? Like, it's crazy, man. I think the biggest thing that I notice is like when people get older, they feel like they want to control as much as they can as possible. Not everybody, but a lot of people, right? And when they lose control, they feel insignificant, and so they feel like they have to kind of take it out on the people underneath them. And I feel like that in itself is very toxic. And they can in turn do a lot of things that are pretty messed up, like pretty messed up. So it's just like, I don't know, man. What do you guys think? It's a random one-off video. Just toxic grandparents. Why are those even a thing? Why do they exist? Why do they exist? But it's like, why do toxic parents exist? What makes a toxic parent? Da 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 da. You know, things of the nature. It's just, we can go on and on and on. But I was just more impressed that I've lived long enough to see a toxic grandparent. Like, I thought I would never see that in my life. Because, you know, you think of grandparents and they're sweet people. They're very sweet. They're loving. They're caring. At least all the ones I've seen. But then I met one and I'm like, dang, this is the worst little person I ever saw in my damn life. Like, kudos to you for being who you are, but if you're religious like you say you are, you might want to change your ways. I always thought, right, like, it'd be crazy, you know, when your clock runs out, right? When your clock runs out, and you know you are expecting to float to a more desirable place. Let me say that again. You are floating to what you would think is a more desirable place in the afterlife, and you get rejected. You're like, no, you can't come up here. And then you ask why. It's like, did you look at your record? You haven't apologized for any of this stuff. But in your head, you think you were right. You think you did everything right. I always wondered about stuff like that. You know, it's just weird to me. For people who are religious, right? I mean, not to poke too many nerves or whatever, but I just thought, like, what if you thought you've been living life the right way, and then it's time for you to go to a desirable place or an undesirable place at the end of it all, right? And you go to an undesirable place because of some things that you tried to justify were right, but you kind of knew in your heart of hearts was really messed up, you know? So I was just like, dang, I'm not religious, so it don't really bother me that much, but I just thought it was interesting that I've lived long enough to meet a toxic grandparent in my entire life. And I'm like, dang, they weren't my grandparents, so I'm like, hey, it's not my problem. But hey, man, more power to you. If you guys know anything like that, have similar stories and stuff, let me know in the comments down below. I'm curious. Just wanted to make a one-off video talking about something different than I normally do, and kind of just go from there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for listening. Peace.